Minister, may we start with the latest events following the hijacking and the shooting of your planes. We now have a Swiss Air plane exploding in midair with 47 people killed. What do you want the governments of the world to do to stop this kind of thing?
Well, I think that one must find out what is it that can be done at the source. I mean, these people are not just individuals, madmen or bitter men as you have around the world every once in a while that hijack planes and take them somewhere. These are organizations dedicated to kill and to bring down planes for Israelis. But wherever Israelis are, therefore their planes must come down. They started with El Al, and now they've gone on. These people are organized. They have a base. The base is in the Arab countries. The Arab countries openly support them with money, with arms, with possibilities of training. That's where they start out from. That's where they come back to. The Arab countries and the governments don't deny that these organizations have their sympathy and aid and understanding. They come back after hijacking a plane or after trying to destroy a plane, come back to the Arab countries as heroes. These Arab countries have airlines, some of them at any rate. They have airports. Now, it seems to us that it is only natural for airlines, governments that have airlines, to say to Arab countries, if you want to participate in the community of air travel, you must play the game decently. I think now everybody feels that piracy of this kind and murderous acts of this kind, it cannot be limited only to Israel. I don't think it should have been allowed to go on even if it was only the El Al planes. But now I think it's quite evident. Of course, there's maybe another way out, but I can't imagine that a civilized world in the 20th century will adopt that.
What other way out is that?
That is to say, in so many words, to the terrorists, well, if that's what you want, so we'll help in a certain way. We won't fly to Israel, we won't fly any mail to Israel. We'll help you boycott Israel.
If the world governments do nothing, what will you do?
We'll have to protect ourselves.
How?
We'll see, best way we can. Not attacking innocent victims, innocent passengers. That we don't do.
Could we presume that there might be something like the Beirut raid again? Might Damascus airport go up?
I don't know. I'll tell you honestly, if I did know what we were going to do, I don't think I would tell you.
Prime Minister, after gunmen shot up your plane in Zurich, you launched the massive retaliation raid on Beirut airport, and yet the incidents have gone on. Doesn't this show that a policy of retaliation against governments for the action of guerrillas just doesn't work?
What did we do against the Beirut airport? Was any person hurt? Our boys that went to Beirut, they didn't see to it that all the people that were wandering around at the airport should get out of the way?
But it didn't stop it, did it, Prime Minister? Are you saying that, in fact, you'll have to do something? Maybe somebody will have to get hurt?
No, no. We never go out to hurt anybody that's innocent. Sometimes innocent people are hurt, but that's not our intention.
Yeah,
and it's not because we don't do everything possible not to hurt people.
There are people, presumably in the Arab countries, who you would say are not innocent, who might get hurt.
I think our passengers on the Swiss plane, ours and other nationals, were innocent people.
Both sides in the Middle East talk about an imbalance of power. The Arabs say that they need new weaponry to keep up with you. You say that you need new weaponry to keep up with the Arabs. If you get the 50 Phantoms from the Americans, will this in fact correct the imbalance of power in your favor?
It will correct some of the imbalance. President Nasser said only several days ago, it isn't a question that he doesn't have enough planes. He said, we have planes, but I don't have enough pilots. Well, supposing he gets more planes, will he have more pilots of his own? He said that in an interview, I don't remember exactly where to, that it isn't a question of a lack of planes, but he doesn't have enough pilots. Israel has a lack of planes, and he says, has 2 pilots for each plane. And they're good pilots. That's true, thank God for that. But we've never asked, nor can we afford to have plane for plane and tank for tank. That's all nonsense. But you reach a certain point where the imbalance really becomes dangerous.
Is it dangerous at the moment?
It is extremely essential, very vital for us, that this imbalance is corrected. You see, after the war, what happened in Egypt? The Soviet Union not only replaced everything that Egypt has lost in the war, but sent them much more than they originally had. Therefore, Egypt now has more planes and more tanks and more guns than it had before the War of '67. And Egypt does not have too much difficulty in getting more, because Russia is prepared to send practically everything that Nasser asks for, and there's also an imbalance in conditions under which the Arabs get arms and which conditions we get arms.
You pay for them?
Yes.
Are you confident that you're going to get these Phantoms?
I'd like to say yes. I hope. I mean, we haven't yet had an answer from the United States government, but I'd like to say that I'm confident that we will get them, but I think it's wiser to wait and see.
Prime Minister, what has been the effect of your policy of retaliation against Egypt?
Casualties of our boys on the Canal have dropped to a very large extent. People forget there is, on the 10th of June, '67, the Security Council of the United Nations adopted a resolution for ceasefire. The Arab countries, Egypt and we, and Syria and the others, but as far as the Canal is concerned, Egypt and we accepted. We're prepared to go back to that any minute. We've been saying this over and over again. We want peace. As long as there's no peace, ceasefire. Then let us, all of us, abide by the resolution of ceasefire. Ceasefire means that everything on the Canal must be absolutely quiet, no shooting. The minute that Nasser says that he's prepared, we'll be happy to comply. But if there is shooting, then nobody can really tell us, now look, you must do exactly the same what the Egyptians do. They're a solid wall of men and tanks and guns. You have fewer, but that doesn't make any difference. You must only use the same way of shooting and shelling. There are no rules of that kind. But as long as Nasser does not abide by the ceasefire, he announced publicly that he doesn't recognize that there is a state of ceasefire and keeps on shooting, there's nothing in the world that can force us to use exactly the same methods as he uses against us. Then we're at a disadvantage of manpower and number of tanks and guns. He has a solid wall of men and arms facing us. We haven't. Therefore, we must use the most effective way that we can in order that our men should not be there just at his service to be killed.
Prime Minister, is it your intention to bomb civilians when you have raids on the outskirts and suburbs of Cairo?
Is there a country in the world that was at war that can really say never, never, never have they, against their desire and against their intention, hit somebody or hit something that has resulted in a tragedy?
But isn't your present policy of bombing on the outskirts of Cairo likely to lead to other such mistakes or tragedies? I mean, for instance, it only needs one of your planes to be shot down and plough through a school or a hospital. These things must be reckoned for.
Yes, but we didn't put military installations next to Cairo. We didn't plan it that way. And the fact is that there was only one instance of this kind. And everybody that sends out, everybody that's at war, knows that this has happened. We're terribly sorry this has happened. How many instances do people know in the world where two parties that are at war, that one should warn another party, look, there's a bomb there, take care of it? Because as soon as we realized that this terrible mistake was made, we acted. I mean,
what was
it's I don't want to be in the equal moral basis as our neighbors. But for 2.5 years, there is shelling from across the Jordanian border, and civilians, our children, are in shelters, living in shelters for 2.5 years. I haven't seen, nor read, nor heard that the world was so horrified.
Do you consider you're on a superior moral basis to the Arabs?
I think yes. I'm not happy to say that, because we intend to remain in this neighborhood. And we're convinced that the day of peace will come, and we want to cooperate with them. And when there will be peace, I think there will be no difference.
And Prime Minister, Egyptian kids are taught to hate Israel. Aren't you in fact driving the lesson home to them?
That's the beginning of their hatred?
No, but it endorses it, doesn't it?
But do you believe that we wanted to hurt their fathers or their mothers, whoever were in the factories? Let me tell you a story that I only heard yesterday, which is typical. In one of our kibbutzim right across the Jordan, that has been shelled day and night, and there are children there that don't know any other home except air shelters. And at one of the shelling, the father with a little boy of 4 was in the shelter, and the child was scared and cried. And the father said, look, don't worry, these are not the shells from the other side, these are our shells. And the child said, do they have shelters for the children on the other side? He said, because, the children are not to blame that their fathers are Fatah. Our children are not taught to hate.
Mrs. Meir, if it was business, nobody makes a profit without risk, and the profit that you are going to make here is peace. Isn't it worth some risk for a short period?
We think enough of our people have been killed for no reason whatsoever. And I refuse to believe that this is something that only we can profit by it. As long as people believe that peace is something, some kind of luxury that the Israelis have gotten into their minds that that's what they would like to have. And therefore, if they want this luxury, they have to pay for it.
Prime Minister, you always talk about direct negotiations with the Arabs. But what possible incentive for the Arabs to sit down at a table with you when everybody you speak to in Israel conveys the impression that you're there to stay on the Golan Heights, in Jerusalem, even on the West Bank? Why should they sit down? What are they going to get?
What do we say? We say no preconditions. Let's sit down and negotiate. And we say Israel wants secure and agreed borders.
But you go throughout the territories that you conquered in '67, Mrs. Meir, and you find Israel digging in a very permanent way. What possible reason have the Arabs to think that you really intend to go from any of them?
People say to us, pull back to the borders of '67, and then there will be peace. We were in the borders of 67, in June in 67, and in May 67. Why was there war? And immediately after the war, we said, let us sit down and negotiate peace. They didn't do it. And we say now, we've been saying it over and over again, let us sit down and negotiate a peace which we say will be with an attempt to have agreed borders.
No preconditions, not even Jerusalem?
We say no preconditions before we sit down. Nasser will also come with some ideas, and we will come with some ideas. Of course we will. I don't say that when we sit down at the table, we have nothing to negotiate for. Nasser will have nothing to negotiate for.
Has there been a single moment since 1967 when you thought that the Arabs were ready to talk?
No. Because this is something that must be realized by people in the world, and unless they realize that, there is no understanding of the entire situation. Our quarrel with the Arabs is not a quarrel for a piece of land. It's not for territory. It's not for anything concrete. They just refuse to believe that we have the right to exist at all.
But surely for the people who were here in 48, who have left then, surely for the Jordanians who are now on the other side of the Jordan, surely for them it's land. And don't you understand them and their desire to come back?
Why did they leave?
Well, many of them were refugees of war. Maybe they don't like a conquered
But
army.
who made the war? They don't like a conquered army. Therefore, we should leave. Oh, that I understand. Yes, then we can have peace in this area.
But
Without Israel in this area, there won't be peace. The Arabs are not so friendly with each other, but that's none of my business. Oh, this is a solution.
But I have a feeling
It just happens that there are 14 Arab countries and immense territories. And we've come back. We've been here before.
2,000 years
And
ago.
we've come back.
2,000 years ago.
Yes. What did we take away from the Arabs when we came back? We didn't want to live with them in peace. We asked them to leave. We didn't accept the partition of Mr. Churchill in 1922 and the partition of the UN in 1947. We didn't say yes. What difference is there between Arabs who were on this side of the Jordan and the other side of the Jordan? Arabs in the East Bank and the west of the border of the West Bank. I mean, when were Palestinians born? What was all this area before the First World War? When Britain got the mandate over Palestine, what was Palestine then? Palestine was then the area between the Mediterranean and the Iraqi border.
You say there is no such thing as a
East
Palestinian.
and West Bank, no. East and West Bank was Palestine. I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport. There was no such thing in this area as Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. There were Jews and Arabs.
But isn't there, don't you... I mean, you deny that there was a Palestine Arab people before, but there is now a Palestine liberation movement. The history of liberation movements are that they grow. Won't this one grow and become in end, in fact, your biggest enemy?
I don't say there are no Palestinians, but I say there is no such thing as a distinct Palestinian people of all the Palestinians who live in Jordan. Why have the Palestinians in the West Bank become more Palestinians since the 5th of June 67 than they were before? Why didn't they set up a Palestinian country in addition to Jordan? Supposing your premise is right, then what should they have done? They should have set up another independent Palestine and fought from there. They didn't do that. They adopted the fact that they are in Jordan. They've adopted the Jordanian citizens. They are the majority in Jordan. They are in parliament. They are in government. What has happened since? Why have they become more Palestinian conscious since the War of '67? I mean, people, decent people, liberal people, people that are for self-determination, sympathize with Palestinians. Everybody has the right to self-determine except we. We're the only people in the world to whom it is not given the right for self-determination. We have to be, evidently, minorities all over the world, and we have no right for independence. The Arabs are prepared to negotiate with us? Which Arab? Where? When? If you know of an Arab leader, head of state, that wants to negotiate with us, by all means, tell us. I'm prepared to go to Cairo, I'm prepared to go to Damascus, I'm prepared to go to Amman, I'm prepared to go to Beirut, anywhere.
You would go to these places?
Yes, happily. To negotiate peace, of course.
What would be your first words to President Nasser if you did ever sit at the table with him?
I would say shalom, which means peace.
Prime Minister, do you believe that if Nasser falls, you'll get anything better in his place?
Something we don't speculate about. I don't remember exactly that we have had a voice in putting Nasser in where he is, and it's not our business nor within our power to put him out and to put somebody else in.
And you believe that
all I believe is that it can't be worse. No matter who comes in his place, it can't be worse.
One notices in this country that people never forget the war, that they listen to every news bulletin, every hour on the hour. You, of course, presumably know the news beforehand. Can you tell me how this affects you?
First place, my first choice would be not to be a prime minister. My second choice would be to be a prime minister in the same position as all other prime ministers who have their troubles, I'm sure, and have their difficulties. How does it affect? I'm one of our people that every boy that is wounded on the Kanal or somewhere else is a wound in the hearts of all of us. Don't necessarily have to know him or his family. It's difficult. And that's why we value life, not only our own. Just we value life. And this is our strength. Maybe I'm going to say this is our weakness because Arab leaders are not so sensitive to the very question of life, of having people alive instead of dead. Otherwise, there would be no wars.
Do you ever doubt the correctness of your policy?
No, sir. What do you mean, my policy? My policy is to keep our people alive and to keep our independence. How can anybody doubt the right that we have that is similar to the right of 125 peoples in the world?
Do you ever sometimes feel that perhaps you might just have stayed in America and been happier and lived a nicer life?
I didn't run away from America. America was kind to me and to my parents. I was brought up there. I enjoyed everything that the United States can give. But I never regretted for 1 second that I didn't remain there and that I came here.
But if you were brought up in America, what possible right have you to live in a land that was once Arab, whether he neglected it and left it a stony desert or not?
I came to Merhavia when there was nothing there. This land was deserted for centuries. We were driven out of this land. Is this where history begins? Twice we were driven out of this land, occupied by other powers. The Arabs, this is the only people, the Jewish people, whose life, independence, dignity depends on this piece of soil. The only people in the world, not the Arabs, They have this entire territory, the entire vast area, 14 independent countries.
Isn't time, though, on their side, whatever you do?
Why?
Because they talk of fighting for 100 years, they talk of their population growing. Isn't time on their side?
I don't believe it. You mean you want me to believe that things will never change? That they will go on shooting and killing? You want me to believe that generation after generation of young people in the Arab countries will have no other ideal except to kill Jews? I don't believe it.
You are hopeful?
I'm positive that this will not happen. I don't know how long this war will go on.
Prime Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.